Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Kate Wingrove, and I am the Education Programs and Training Director here at Toastmasters International World Headquarters. And we also have with us today Jessie Lester, Education Development Supervisor, Sue Stanley, Senior Instructional Designer, and Diana Passo, Senior Marketing Manager. And we are all so excited to be spending this time with you today. During the course of the next about hour, we're going to be sharing with you about Speechcraft. Now, Speechcraft is one of the best tools that we have for building membership in our clubs. And I happen to think it's one of the perfect ways to introduce potential members to Toastmasters, especially if they're not quite ready to join a club yet. So they'll have an opportunity to learn how the club environment works. They'll have the chance to begin developing their skills. And I feel pretty confident that by the time they've completed the Speechcraft program, they're going to be ready to join your club. During today's call, we're going to introduce you to the Speechcraft digital experience. And this is going to include a demonstration of the program and the systems that you'll use to access it. We'll talk about the educational content for coordinators and participants, which we're calling Speechcrafters. So participants are Speechcrafters. We're also going to explore the associated marketing materials and different ways that you can encourage speech crafters to join your club. And at the very end, we will have some time for questions. And you can also submit questions along the way. So for me, questions pop up and I don't always remember them by the time we come to questions at the end. So type your questions into the Q&A pane on the Zoom control panel at any point during the webinar. That way we know what question you have and we'll address it when we get to the end. And we'll get through as many questions as we can during the time that we have. Just a note for all of you, there is also the chat feature in Zoom. Our team will not be monitoring the chat feature, but you're welcome to use it to talk with one another. Now, when you purchase the Speechcraft digital bundle, you're going to receive the following items. You're going to receive a Speechcraft Coordinator Quick Start Guide, and this is going to be available in your My Downloads section of Toastmasters.org, and it has instructions on how you get started and get going with your Speechcraft program. You'll receive a Speechcraft specific login and a Basecamp page for your individual Speechcraft event. You'll receive digital learning for your 5 Speechcrafters, which is available on Basecamp. You'll receive digital materials for one coordinator, available also on Basecamp. There are a number of printable resources to help you with planning, excuse me, and organizing your Speechcraft sessions, and marketing materials to support the promotion of your event. Now, I've said digital a lot in the description of the things that you'll be receiving related to Speechcraft. And even though the materials and the educational content are going to be digital, the events themselves don't need to be conducted online. You still have the freedom to conduct them however best suits the needs of your speech crafters, whether it be in person, online, or some form of a hybrid program. So rest assured, you still have some flexibility with how you can conduct your event. One of the great things about the Speechcraft digital experience is that we've held on to all of the things that you know and love about the traditional Speechcraft program, and we've enhanced it and we've aligned it with the Pathways learning experience. So, what ends up happening then is your Speechcrafters will have a more consistent experience when they join your club. And they'll be able to actually receive credit in Pathways for their participation in the Speechcraft program. As a coordinator, you'll also be able to receive credit for your role in conducting the program. We also, one of my personal favorite things, have built in opportunities to collect feedback from speech crafters and coordinators to assist us in continuing to improve the product over time. So we don't think of this as a static product that's launched and it's never going to change ever again, but rather as something that's going to evolve over time. We want to hear from you and find out how you're actually using the program and the product, and we can make some adjustments along the way if need be. Now, on the club side of things, one of the great things about conducting a Speechcraft program, like I mentioned earlier, this is a membership building tool. It's a great opportunity for clubs to grow their membership. And I happen to think it's even better that these new members coming in are already going to have some familiarity with Toastmasters, which is a win win. The other thing that clubs can use Speechcraft for is as a means of raising funds and increasing awareness of their club in the community. So you've kind of got membership building, fundraising, and overall awareness of the club within the community. Now, there are a couple of policies and protocols that relate to Speechcraft as well that are important to keep in mind. The first is that clubs are the only entities that are allowed to conduct Speechcraft programs. So, no area programs, no division programs, no district programs, just clubs. And when clubs are conducting Speechcraft, like I mentioned just before, you absolutely can use it as a fundraising opportunity, but we don't intend for any individual organization or other group to profit from its delivery. So fundraising, okay, but profit, not so much. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Jesse and Sue. Jesse's going to walk us through the experience of a coordinator from logging in through to actually accessing the educational content, and Sue will share with us a little bit about the educational content itself. But I've asked them to keep their cameras off as they go through their explanation so that you can actually focus a bit more on the content that they're sharing, especially since we're seeing the actual system. Jesse and Sue, over to you.
Today we're going to start on the Speechcraft Gateway. The Speechcraft Gateway is your front door to the new Speechcraft digital experience. This is the front door for coordinators as well as for Speechcraft participants or Speechcrafters. When a coordinator purchases a Speechcraft digital bundle, they'll come to the Speechcraft Gateway to set up their new event. We're currently logged in as a coordinator who has already set up an event. And that's why we're able to see the coordinator overview. Now, one note about logging into the Speechcraft Gateway, when you do log in, you're going to use your existing Toastmasters ID and credentials. So there's no need to set up any new login information. As I mentioned, we have access to the coordinator guide because we are logged in as a coordinator. This is going to give me a very brief overview about Speechcraft. And then it also includes a quick start preparation schedule. And this has important milestones that I will want to keep in mind as I plan for my event, as I conduct my event, and then, of course, as I close my event. Now, again, these are just high level milestones. Your coordinator materials that live on Basecamp will have much more detailed information to help you in planning your event. And we'll take a look at those in a little bit. A few other things to note though, while we're here on the Speechcraft Gateway, you also have access to FAQs. And these FAQs are visible to speech crafters as well as coordinators. So that means that people who are attending your event can come here and quickly and easily get access to some of the most commonly asked questions. Now, as I mentioned, the Speechcraft Gateway is also where you will be setting up your new events. You'll come to create new event. We aren't going to walk through all of the steps to do so today, but just know that this is where you would come after purchasing a digital bundle to input all of the information for the Speechcraft that you will be conducting. Once you have added a new event, it will show here on the Event tab. And as you'll see, we've already added an event. In fact, I have two events listed here. Now, there's a number of reasons why you might have multiple events listed in the dropdown. The first of those reasons is that it's possible that you're conducting two separate speech crafts that are kind of at the same time, or at least they've been set up on the Speechcraft Gateway at the same time. And if that's the case, they would both show here. The other reason that you might have multiple events in this dropdown is if you're conducting one single Speechcraft that includes more than 5 participants. So, as a reminder, for every 5 participants in your Speechcraft course, you will purchase a separate digital bundle. And each digital bundle will be set up as a separate event here on the Speechcraft Gateway. So, you'll see all of those listed here as separate events, even if you're conducting them simultaneously. From the dropdown, you're going to select the event that you want to view and access. We'll come back here to the Go to My Speechcraft for Learning and talk about that in just a moment. But I also want to note that as you can see, all of the information I've included about my event shows here. Dates and times, the location. I can also edit this information using these icons here. Now, it's important that coordinators input accurate information here and keep this up to date if anything changes. The reason for that is that your speech crafters have access to see this information. Speech crafters will also access Speechcraft through the Speechcraft gateway, and they will be able to see the information that you put in about dates and times and location. So you want to make sure that's accurate for them. Additionally, Speechcrafters will be able to see the name and contact information for the Speechcraft coordinator. And that's to make it easy for them to get a hold of you if they have a question they can't find the answer to. Lastly, on this page, we'll see the list of my Speechcraft attendees. And this is where a coordinator will come and add attendees until all 5 of those seats are filled. If those seats get filled and a coordinator would like to have additional participants in their Speechcraft, they would simply go and purchase a separate digital bundle, add that here on the Speechcraft Gateway as a new event, and then add more participants to that event. And again, that Speechcraft can be run concurrently, same time, same place as the Speechcraft that has already been set up. Couple other notes about adding participants. Each time a participant is added here, they'll receive an email inviting them to get set up for their Speechcraft course. Once they've followed the information in that email, and the email is going to bring them here to the Speechcraft Gateway and have them input some information and set up a login to access their learning. Once they've done those things, you'll see their status change from pending registration to registered. And registered again means that they're set up and they're ready to start accessing their Speechcraft content. Now, we've mentioned a few times that Speechcraft is housed on Basecamp, and that means that coordinators and Speechcrafters will be accessing all of their materials on Basecamp. There's a couple of reasons why Speechcraft is housed on Basecamp, and one of those is to bring it into better alignment with the Pathways learning experience. You'll see when we do get in here in just a moment that it's going to feel very similar to what we're familiar with Pathways, and that will be helpful for coordinators because it's familiar. It will also be great for speech crafters when they join a Toastmasters club and they start working in the Pathways learning experience. It will feel to them like Toastmasters because it's going to look very similar to what they experienced when working in Speechcraft. Now, before we go and access our materials, one other thing to note about the fact that Speechcraft is housed on Basecamp. The portal that we're going to go to for Speechcraft, as you'll see, looks a little bit different. And that's because it is a different portal on Basecamp than where you access your Pathways learning materials. What that means for coordinators or anyone who is an existing member participating in Speechcraft is that you want to always come here to the Speechcraft Gateway in order to access your Speechcraft content. If you go to the Toastmasters website and the buttons that you use to access your Pathways learning experience, you will find your Pathways materials on Basecamp, but your Speechcraft materials won't be there. You're going to want to bookmark the Speechcraft Gateway and ensure that you come here anytime you need to access anything related to Speechcraft. And then when you're ready, again, select the correct event from the drop down here, and you'll just select Go to log into Basecamp and the Speechcraft portal on Basecamp. And this is what it looks like. So again, it feels very familiar for those who have been working in Pathways. But you do have access to new and different things here. The first link that you have here is learning, and this will take you to your transcript. And again, it will feel very familiar to your Pathways transcript. However, you'll have different materials here. And as a coordinator, what you're going to have in your transcript is all of the materials that you need to successfully run your Speechcraft event. Directly below the link to your transcript, you also have quick links to some of those materials. So it's just a quicker way for you to access some of those items that you might use most often. First, there's a curriculum that will help you know how to get started. And then below that, there's a session guide for each of the sessions that you can include in your Speechcraft. And you can quickly launch those with the click of a button from here. Over to the right here, we have a couple of other quick links to help you access your materials quickly. The first is going to take you to an coordinator's introduction. And this is a great place to begin when you're brand new to coordinating a Speechcraft and you've just got into Basecamp and you want to know what to do next. Below that is a quick link to coordinators planning. And this is where to come when you're ready to start preparing for your sessions and planning out all of the details for your Speechcraft. Next, we have session resources. Now, session resources is going to provide you with different materials to help you in your event. We're going to go ahead and take a quick look at this because you'll see when we get here that this takes us to the tutorials and resources page. However, everything that I have access to on this page is specific to Speechcraft. You'll see I have session resources, Speechcraft evaluation resources, speech outlines, and some frequently asked questions. So this is a great place for coordinators to come and download the materials that they may need. Back on the home page, a few other things to note. First is this, Speechcrafter Speech Validation. This is a new tool called Express Class that even if you've been a Basecamp manager, you won't have used before. We've provided access to this tool to Speechcraft coordinators because it's an efficient way to track and validate completion of speeches. We aren't going to walk through how to use this tool today. There is a tutorial included in your transcript on the learning page. However, what's important to note about this tool today is that coordinators will need to use this each time a speech crafter completes a speech. You'll use this tool to validate that they've completed that speech. And when you've done that, it's going to show in that speech crafter's individual transcript that they have indeed completed that speech. Now, this is important for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that when speeches are marked complete, badges are awarded to speech crafters on Basecamp. So you want to mark that speech complete so that they can get access to the badge that says they did that speech. The second, and probably the more important reason to ensure to do this right away, is that those speeches that show completed on their transcript are how speech crafters will get credit when they join a Toastmasters club. So we're going to talk more in detail later about the credit that speech crafters are eligible for on Pathways, but that credit is directly tied to ensuring that speeches have been validated and are showing complete in their transcript. So it's very important for coordinators to use this tool to accurately track those completions. Below this, we have the chat and feedback function. Now, if you've used the feedback feature in the Pathways learning experience, this will be very familiar because it works exactly the same way. This is going to allow you to send messages to your speech crafters, and it will also let you award badges to them. So you can give them those feedback badges to encourage them and award them for a job well done. There are also two new badges included that are specific and exclusive to Speechcraft. A few final things to note on the coordinator homepage. One is another quick link, and this is going to take you to the Speechcrafter Learning. It's important that coordinators know what Speechcrafters are working in, and this will open up the learning provided to Speechcrafters so that you can see each of the projects that they have access to correspond with the sessions you will be holding. And lastly is the Speechcraft dashboards. Now, again, we aren't going to look at these today, but it is important for you to know that coordinators can track the progress of their speech crafters using the Speechcraft dashboards. This will let you see what speech crafters are doing And it's going to allow you to see how speech crafters respond to the Speechcraft self-assessments. There are 3 self-assessments included in Speechcraft that Speechcrafters will complete over the duration of your course. Those assessments ask questions about their experience with public speaking, confidence level, things related to what they'll be learning. And as a coordinator, you're able to see how they respond to each of those questions here on the Speechcraft dashboards. And that concludes a brief overview of what coordinators have access to here on the home page in the Speechcraft portal on Basecamp. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Sue Stanley to share more about the content.
Thank you, Jessie. Hello, everyone. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the content in the Speechcraft digital experience. The new Speechcraft is reflective of the traditional Speechcraft in many ways. We've created a chart to demonstrate the similarities between the programs. You will notice that the same number of sessions and speeches are available in both the digital experience and the traditional Speechcraft. Speech topics are the same or similar, as are the session topics. The program includes an emphasis on mentoring opportunities with guides assigned to each speech crafter. The guides fill the role advisors filled in the traditional Speechcraft. The biggest content change in the new Speechcraft digital experience is a greater emphasis on applying feedback. In Pathways, members are encouraged to review their evaluations and apply what they have learned. The same emphasis is now a part of Speechcraft. As you have seen, coordinators have a new profile in Basecamp. Coordinators have access to their own materials and the Speechcrafter learning. What you are seeing here, when it opens, there it is the Speechcrafter learning. This is the main menu, which shows all the projects available to speech crafters. Coordinators may choose to do their sessions in the recommended order or in an order that reflects the goals of their club. The recommended order may work perfectly, or a club may choose to start with any project to support their goals. For example, a club may want to emphasize vocal variety right at the beginning, so they may choose to invite their speech crafters to complete that project first. Now we're going to look at a session from a coordinator's perspective. Sessions can be delivered in person or at a location or online, in person at a location or online via Zoom or other platform. The Speechcraft digital experience includes many resources, starting with agendas. And what you're seeing here is a menu. All of the projects for the coordinators look exactly the same, and the menu is the same for the Speechcrafter learning as well. So every single thing you open or a coordinator opens will look very familiar. So let's look at the agendas. There are multiple agendas available for each session, depending on whether a coordinator chooses to complete their sessions, to complete the recommended 8 sessions or 4 sessions or even 6 sessions. And there is also a custom agenda if those agendas that are provided are not what the coordinator needs. They are created in Microsoft Word so that they are fully editable to add coordinator name, dates, locations, speaker names, anything that the coordinator would like to add. Each session is laid out in the similar way. You will find the sessions follow the same path, and if there's a recommended activity, that activity is described in detail. And each presentation, there are learning presentations just like in the traditional program or traditional Speechcraft, and each presentation provides a full outline for that presentation that can be used by the Speechcraft coordinator or by the volunteer who they have invited to deliver that particular learning presentation. Coordinators can choose to share any resources their volunteers would find useful. Each session, and we're going to click through the screens now so that you can see what the sessions look like. If there's a discussion, there are discussion questions provided, a description of table topics, any of the things that coordinators might need to run a successful session 1 is provided here and provided in all the session outlines. Each session includes a workshop. The workshop is a really important part of the Toastmasters Speechcraft experience. And that is because that's the opportunity for the guides to work one-on-one with their speech crafters to answer any questions, to help them design their speeches, to help them select a topic, to help them understand anything they might be struggling with. Speechcrafter projects. So if a coordinator chooses to have an assistant and they need to share the content learned in any of these Speechcrafter sessions, they can share the printable resource for each Speechcrafter project. So this is what that resource looks like. It is not a word for word what the project is, but it includes an overview of every section and a summary of what the Speechcrafter learns, and that can be shared. Coordinators can also recommend the use of the Pathways mentoring materials to help their guides and assistants if they need to do that. The Pathways mentoring materials are available to any Toastmaster who has completed level 2 in Pathways. As I mentioned earlier, Speechcraft and Speechcraft delivery are at the discretion of the coordinator and their club. Credit for Speechcraft is defined by Toastmasters International WHQ, our world headquarters, and Speechcraft coordinators receive credit toward their DTM. Speechcrafters receive credit for the speeches they deliver when they join. And for more on the benefits of delivering a Speechcraft in a club or for any club, any group that wants to deliver one, here's Diana.
Thank you, Sue. So I'll get us started by talking about the Speechcrafter benefits. You'll see here on the right, we really break down that the benefits of Speechcrafter as far as pathways credit goes really depends on the number of speeches they give. And we will share this as a PDF as a follow-up email with the recording as well. But this really is a nice way to visually break down the speeches for you. But essentially for Speechcrafters, as you're marketing the product and maybe trying to get people to join an event, it's really best to market it as a way to get an immediate need met, right? So we know that you can do this in 4 sessions or 6 sessions. So it's really a quick way if someone has a upcoming job interview or a big presentation or maybe a wedding toast, it's a great way for them to practice that speech and really get better at their speaking in that supportive environment, right? That we all know and love at Toastmasters. And with, as we show here with the Pathways credit, it really gives them a head start too. So hopefully they decide to join your club and then it gives them a head start towards Pathways. So next I'll show you what comes with the bundle from a marketing perspective. So Kate showed us earlier, when you get the digital bundle, which I'm seeing some questions, it is $50 USD, and it is available now on the store. And with the bundle, you'll get a few things. 2 of the marketing pieces are 2 marketing flyers. This one I like to call it kind of the pre-selling flyer. So this one gives a quick overview of what Speechcraft is. It talks about that immediate need and gives examples of how you could use it, and is a great way when you're working on getting those 5 participants. So maybe you know before you buy the bundle, maybe you want to get all your participants together. This is a great flyer to use to really build that up for prospective Speechcrafters. And then we have another flyer, which I think is great to use once you have all your event details set. So now you've got your participants, you have your event details. This is a fillable PDF that you can use that has all of your details of when your event will take place. You fill out the PDF, you can maybe use it. I saw someone say in the chat that they had bought one and they only had 4 people, so maybe they need to get that 5th person, right? So this is a great way of saying, hey, I have, this event going on X day, join me, and really using that maybe to fill a spot that you need to fill. Another great tool is we have the Speechcraft Gateway that Jesse talked about. We have this, there's kind of multiple things to the gateway. When you're not logged in, you can actually also use it as a way to refer people to it as a marketing resource. So the gateway has several categories. It kind of has an overview at the top, and then it talks about coordinators and attending. So that attending section is a great way for Speechcrafters to learn about what they get out of attending, and a good way for you to another web page to point them to. We're also working on a promotional video that'll be hopefully a quick 1 minute or so video that'll really tell them what it is and what's in it for them that you'll be able to use as well. And then lastly, I wanted to share some ideas. So these are just approaches. Kate earlier talked about fundraising. There are some rules and policies around that. I'm giving you some ideas from a marketing perspective, but by no means this is, a rule. So I'll kind of walk you through 3 concepts or things that you can do. So the first one is that you can use Speechcraft as a membership incentive, right? So you want them, so say you get someone to become a Speechcrafter, how do you price this out? So you know that your bundle is $50 per 5 attendees, but maybe you want to use this tool to get people to join. So maybe you want to charge each Speechcrafter, let's say $45, which is the equivalent of the 6-month international dues. And then you tell them, well, if you join, it's only $20 more to join, right? Because that's your new member fee. That's one approach. You could also take another approach and charge $65, and then you would include the new member fee, and then you'd say essentially it's free, or you'd only charge your club fees basically at that point if they join. So that's one idea. Another idea could be more of a break-even approach. So you maybe charge a minimal investment, right? Because you want it to be kind of a low barrier to entry for them to come and be a speech crafter. So you might say, well, if the bundle costs me $50 and I charge, let's say, $15 for each participant, that covers your cost of the bundle and maybe covers some administrative costs, whether you had to get something on Zoom or rent a room or have snacks or something like that. It would kind of cover your costs, and you kind of just break even. But you've hopefully created some fans of Toastmasters, created some brand awareness of your club and of the organization, and maybe they join, and it was really reasonably priced. And last approach that is an option is kind of, I'm calling it the immediate benefit approach. So these are the people that maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a young guy who's going to be a best man at his best friend's wedding, and all he wants is just to practice his speech. That's all he wants. He probably won't join. So you probably want to take kind of this benefit where you're maybe maxing out what you can charge. So the rule is, and you can see more on policy 8.2, but the rule is that you can charge no more than 12-month dues for this. So that's kind of your cap, right? But if you do know, like I said, that this guy maybe isn't going to join your club, you might want to just bump that up and kind of either hit your max or closer if you think he'd pay, because he just really needs that help for the wedding toast he's giving. So hopefully that's helpful to you. And I think all of these approaches kind of depend on the situation and who you have in your speech crafters, and I think they can really help you. So we have a ton of questions coming in, and we want to save a lot of time for that. So let's get started.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Diana. So if you do have questions, there is still that Q&A pane that you can go ahead and type your questions into. We have seen a lot of questions coming in along the way. So thank you to those of you who have already submitted questions to us. We greatly appreciate that. Bear with me while I take a peek at what we have, and we'll start moving our way through the questions that have been submitted. So let's see here. Some of the first questions that we have. Jesse, the first one I'm going to bring to you. The question is, do I have to be a member of the club if I'm the coordinator?
Great question. The answer is yes. To coordinate a Speechcraft, you do need to be a member of a Toastmasters club. So when you set up your event on the Speechcraft Gateway, it is going to ask you to select one of the clubs in which you are a member.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Sue, one of the questions for you is, can a coordinator actually participate as a speech crafter?
I don't see any reason why you could not if you wanted to coordinate and also deliver speeches as part of the Speechcraft. I think the balance might be a little challenging, but I don't see that as inappropriate. So yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Another question that we've received is really just asking for some clarity on what is Speechcraft and how is Speechcraft different from a normal Toastmasters membership program, and what's the purpose of it? I think of Speechcraft as kind of like a really short, limited time frame where you're coming in and having a chance to jump right in and start developing your communication skills really, really quickly, right? And so Diana mentioned a couple of instances where this might make sense for somebody. If you know that someone's got a speech to give really in the near future and they want to just come in and practice really quickly, that's a great way for them to come and develop their skills. Another instance that makes a lot of sense is maybe you have some guests that have come to your club recently and they're thinking about joining, but they're not quite ready yet. They're not sure they want to do that full 6-month commitment. You could put on a Speechcraft program and invite those guests to come to your Speechcraft program instead. And it's a shorter commitment. Now, we've talked a lot about the lengths of time in which you can conduct a Speechcraft program. You can have a 4-session program, a 6-session program, an 8-session program. You can break things up however works best for you. So you can choose to shorten or lengthen your program depending on maybe what your guests are looking for when you're conducting that program with them. Let's see, what other questions do we have here? Jesse, this is a question for you about how long the login is available. Are we limited to a year or how does that work?
Once you've set up and scheduled your Speechcraft event, you'll be asked, when you do set it up, you will be asked for a start date and an end date. And the end date should be the date that you expect your Speechcraft event to conclude. Your logins and the logins for your Speechcrafters will remain available for 90 days after that end date. So if I had a date or an event that was ending tomorrow on February 25th, that would start those 90 days. And those are to allow you as the coordinator and the Speechcrafters to finish up any last things, download certificates and things like that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Sue, the next question is going to be for you. We've talked about the fact that there are some different ways in which we can conduct the actual event. We can do it online, we can do it in person. Do you have any guidance on how we might do it online? Like we're in Zoom right now. Do you have any guidance on how we would conduct a Speechcraft program in Zoom? And another question related to this is whether or not the bundle that we receive includes a Zoom link that our groups can use.
At this time, it does not include a Zoom link. That would be up to the club or whatever organization you're delivering Speechcraft to have that Zoom link. Any platform will work. If you are using a platform for your club meetings, it's the same type of an event. So you want to have access to something that will allow people to present live to the group, and you will want to be able to have that communication back and forth. Breakout rooms in Zoom are great because part of the session involves some mentoring, and that would be really nice if you could do that for your club and your speech crafters. So
Perfect. Thank you so much. Diana, I do have a question for you. We've had a question about whether or not we can use Speechcraft to partner with Rotary and how we might go about doing that.
That's a great question. I love that question. So we've actually had some clubs use this already as a way to partner with Rotary. And it's a nice way, since part of the courses that we designed for Rotary are them practicing some speeches. It's really a great way for them to, it's a great way for you to use Speechcraft for those people at Rotary that want to practice their speeches. So we've seen some examples where they've put on an event and it's all Rotary members, and the Rotary members have an opportunity through Speechcraft to practice their speeches that they've learned in the courses that we created for Rotary. So it's actually a really great way to use it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Jesse, I'm going to come to you with our next question. So, if I want to, as a member of my club, set up a Speechcraft program, can I just go and do it, or do I have to go through my president, my VPE, my vice, one of the club officers, or how does that all work?
As a member, you can set up a Speechcraft, but you need the support of your club. So you need to talk with a president or a vice president education. Make sure your club knows you're planning to conduct a Speechcraft and that you have their support and they are encouraging and supporting you in doing that.
Perfect. Thank you. Sue, this is a question for you. Um, can we take Speechcraft and provide it to, say, teens? Is that an acceptable use of Speechcraft?
at this time, Speechcraft is intended for an adult audience, but I think you would have to, yeah, it's designed for an adult audience, and I think you would have to talk it to World Headquarters or in your club and any organization that would involve younger people.
All right, perfect. Another question that we've had is whether or not a prospective club can conduct Speechcraft. As it stands right now, we do need to have an active club associated with the event. So when you actually go in and you schedule your event, there's a drop down in that process that asks you which club it's associated with. And so it needs to be an active club. Now, something that you could look at doing potentially is if you're trying to support a prospective club, an active club could be the sponsor of the Speechcraft program on their behalf. So that's something that you could do with that. Diana, a question for you is, can you get those flyers, those marketing flyers that you showed us without actually going in and ordering the digital bundle?
So no, right now those are part of the bundle. It's kind of part of the value of the bundle, right? You get the marketing pieces and everything that go together. So once you buy the bundle, you'll actually find those marketing flyers under your My Downloads and you can download them there and use them.
Fantastic. Jesse, coming back around to you, there's some curiosity around this five speech crafter component. So we have some people they've purchased the bundle, they've only signed up for speech crafters so far, and they're curious what happens to that last speech crafter login. And if I want to have a speech craft program with more than five people, am I allowed to do that? How does that work? What does it end up costing? Lots of questions around this, and let me know if you need me to repeat anything.
Perfect. Let's provide some clarification on those 5 participants. So it is 5 participants per digital bundle, but that does not mean that your Speechcraft is limited to 5 participants. You can hold a Speechcraft event with fewer than 5 participants or with more than 5 participants. So you'll purchase your digital bundle and set up your event. If you have only 4 people who sign up for your Speechcraft, you can still conduct that Speechcraft with those 4 people. You just wouldn't have filled that last seat. Now, that last seat doesn't roll over to a separate Speechcraft. So if you don't use it as part of that Speechcraft, it won't be available to you later, but you can still go ahead and conduct the Speechcraft. If you have more than 5 people, you will buy multiple digital bundles. So if I was holding a Speechcraft with 10 participants, I would purchase 2 digital bundles. Each of those digital bundles will be set up as separate events on the Speechcraft Gateway and separate groups on Basecamp. However, you can hold them simultaneously as one Speechcraft at the same place, time, all of those details. Let me know, Kate, if I missed anything we need to provide a clarification on there.
I think that was perfect, Jesse. Thank you. Sue, I have a question for you. This is around kind of that size concept. So we know now that we can do a Speechcraft program with more than 5 participants. Do you have any guidance on what would be the largest size Speechcraft that you would recommend conducting? And is there a difference between, the size you might do for an in-person program versus an online program?
I think that really depends on the club and the coordinators involved. There would have to be multiple coordinators. So the goal is to meet the needs of the speech crafters in attendance. If you have like a multiple club environment where you're working with a university and you're going to have lots of volunteers coming in to support those speech crafters, you could have a very large speechcraft event. You'd have to group your speech crafters by groups of 5 so you would know that those pods could communicate with each other and the coordinator. And it's just, however many plates you can spin and however many volunteers that you have, that would dictate the number of people that you could have in attendance.
Fantastic. Thank you. Diana, this is a question for you. We have a question about what if we just don't want to charge our speech crafters for their participation in the program? Is that allowed? Is that recommended? Is it doable? What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely allowed. I mean, it's again, it's another marketing strategy. I didn't list this approach, but that's a good question. You can absolutely absorb the cost of Speechcraft through your club and give it away for free as a way of a membership incentive. Absolutely, that's a good strategy as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Let's see what other questions we've got in here. Jesse, this one is going to be for you. Once I've completed my Speechcraft program, can I go back into the gateway and use my login and use that information for a future Speechcraft program that I want to host?
Once your Speechcraft is concluded, as we mentioned, you'll be able to access that Speechcraft for 90 days. But if you're ready to hold another Speechcraft, at that point, you will go and purchase another digital bundle or multiple digital bundles, depending on the number of participants in that new Speechcraft you're conducting. So one digital bundle is good for conducting one Speechcraft.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Sue, this is going to be a question for you. So, this question is more about me as a coordinator. Do you have recommendations about the level of expertise I should have in order to conduct a speechcraft? If I feel like I'm pretty good at public speaking, but maybe I'm just not sure if I'm ready to step up and conduct a speechcraft program. What guidance do you have for me on that?
I think the most important thing that a coordinator needs is the interest and the willingness to volunteer their time. That's primary. And then the secondary to that is a comfort with Toastmasters overall. If any member who's been around for a while, feels comfortable with Toastmasters, is comfortable with public speaking, understands the materials that are being presented, it would be completely appropriate to lead the Speechcraft. It's just more important is the willingness to commit the time.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We have had some questions from those of you who have already gone in and purchased a digital Speechcraft bundle. So thank you so much, number one, for being some of our earliest purchasers of the bundle. We really appreciate it. And this ties into what I mentioned earlier about us taking feedback and trying to continually improve this product. So we've already heard that there's some concern about the process in which you go to access the materials, that you have to schedule your event first and then you have access to the materials. So thank you so much to those of you who shared that feedback with us. We've heard you and we are addressing that. And so I believe it should be live this week. We have a new flow for a coordinator when they're going in and getting into a speechcraft and scheduling their event. So you will now have the ability to say, ooh, I'm not quite ready to schedule my event yet, but you'll still be able to go in and access the materials, familiarize yourself with the information in there, and then come back and schedule your event at a later date. So thank you again to those of you who shared your feedback with us. We so appreciate it, and please keep sharing your feedback with us along the way. Diana, this is going to be a question for you. This is a question about languages in which Speechcraft is available. We've had some queries about, hey, I want it in German, I want it in Japanese, I want it in some language other than English. What's the plan there?
So right now it's only available in English, but as Kate has been saying, this part of this process is getting feedback, right? So the more we hear, the different languages you want it in, and how successful the program is, and we'll plan on hopefully translating in the future. Not sure when yet, but definitely send us that feedback and let us know, how you'll use it in other languages so we can get that in the queue.
Perfect. Thank you. Jesse, I'm going to come back around to you for another question. So, this question is when I'm going in and I'm starting to work with my speech crafters, is there a way that I can message all of my speech crafters at the same time?
You can. If you are familiar with the messaging and feedback feature on the Pathways portal on Basecamp, you'll have access to that same feature within the Speechcraft portal on Basecamp. And that does allow you to send a message and select all 5 of your speech crafters at once. One thing to note about that messaging is that there are not currently any notifications attached to it. So if you are planning to communicate with your speech crafters through the Speechcraft portal on Basecamp, you will just want to make sure that you ask them to check that messaging page every time they log in.
All right, perfect. So this one is going to be a question for you, and this one is about the agendas that are provided. So there are a lot of different types of suggested agendas associated with the different length of program that we might be conducting. And as you mentioned earlier, they are in a Word format, so they're editable. We can go in and kind of play with it and adjust it as we need to. The question is, are those agendas also available in PDF format? So maybe we don't want to mess with it too much and we just want to change some small little bits of information. Is that an option that's available for us?
Not at this time, primarily because PDF is not editable and there are lots of open fields in that in the format itself. Although if we do get many requests, we could possibly make that available. It would depend on what comes in and if that really would be beneficial to people.
Perfect. Thank you. Another question that we've had in is about the Speechcraft coordinators themselves. So we've had a little bit of confusion about whether the Speechcraft coordinators are typical club members, club officers, or district officers. And the answer is any of the three could potentially conduct a Speechcraft program. However, you're associating it with the club that you are a member of. So, in as much as district officers are still club members, and they may be club officers, and club officers are still club members, any of the three could conduct the program, but ultimately they'd be doing it as a member of their club or clubs, depending. Diana, this is a question to come back around for you on the marketing side of things. Do you have any ideas for recruiting attendees for one of our Speechcraft programs?
Yeah, great question. So I would say a really good place to start is maybe past guests of your club. So maybe you've had some people that maybe went to one club meeting and decided not to join, or maybe said they didn't have time, depending on what that experience looked like. I think going back to those people that maybe you've had contact with previously would be a great place to start, because they've shown some interest, but maybe they just didn't want to commit the time. And maybe this would show them really the value of Toastmasters and how we help in that environment. The other thing that's I would say is people that are maybe are giving a big speech. So an example that comes to mind is maybe someone that's up for a PhD candidate, and they have to give um, their big speech, right, to get their PhD. And that would be another type of person. So universities, maybe graduate candidates, etc. People that have a big speech coming up, people that may be involved in a wedding. Right now everything's online mostly, but anyone that has anything big coming up, maybe someone that's on a job search that unfortunately we've seen a lot of people due to the pandemic have lost jobs. So maybe supporting someone that needs that help and is going to be doing a lot of job interviews would be great too.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Um, all right, Jesse, I'm going to come back around to you with a question. If one of my speech crafters drops out partway through, is there a way that I can fill their seat with somebody else or reassign their seat? And I'm going to pair another question with that one. What happens if I'm coordinating a speechcraft program and I need to drop out partway through? Is there a plan for how I can address that?
As a coordinator, if you have something come up and you can't complete coordinating your Speechcraft, we can help you swap out for another coordinator. So there's no way for you to adjust that on the Speechcraft gateway. But if you call World Headquarters and contact the Speechcraft team, we can help you put another coordinator in that role and position. If a participant needs to drop out of your Speechcraft, you are able to remove them from the participant list and add someone else in their place. I know that is true up until the date your event starts. I will want to confirm if you can still do that after the event your date starts. So if you contact us at speechcraft@toastmasters.org, we can confirm that piece for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jesse. Sue, I have a question for you in relation to this. So, is there a way, if I'm still not sure that I'm ready to be a Speechcraft coordinator, I'm a little nervous, is there a way that I can go in and look at all of the materials and start studying and decide that I want whether or not I want to become a Speechcraft coordinator?
At this time, there's not. There is marketing material available that you can look at, which shows you what it includes, but you cannot get in and actually see all of the materials together without purchasing the bundle.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Diana, I'm going to bring the next question over to you. This is a question about kind of the order in which we do things. So, if I haven't quite purchased a bundle yet, is it still okay for me to start marketing my Speechcraft event?
Absolutely, yeah, good question. I mean, you might want to secure those 5 people right before you spend the money on buying the bundle. Absolutely. You can use the gateway I mentioned as a way to share that. Again, we'll have a video to share soon, so we'll give you some materials that are available outside of buying the bundle, so that if you decide to really market it first and get those people ahead of time, you can. And like I mentioned, especially if you have past guests or people that might be interested, going to them first and then buying the bundle is absolutely something you can do.
Perfect. Thank you. Jesse, my next question is going to come back around to you. This is just about how we go about actually accessing it. We know that you showed us in the demonstration earlier the way that we go about getting into the Speechcraft login, but there's some curiosity. Can you just re-describe that process for us? And one of the specific questions is there going to be a link in my Toastmasters profile on toastmasters.org to get me to that Speechcraft login?
Great. So you will go to the Speechcraft Gateway, as we mentioned, and there won't be a link to that in your profile. However, as soon as you purchase the digital bundle, you will receive in your My Downloads, along with the marketing materials that Diana has talked about, you will get a Coordinator Quick Start Guide. And the Coordinator Quick Start Guide includes a link to the microsite, which is called the Speechcraft Gateway, so that you can get started through that route. And it'll also walk you through the first steps to get started.
Perfect. Thank you. Sue, this one's going to be a question for you. So we've talked about the fact that we have different numbers of sessions that we can conduct for Speechcraft. This question is about the length of those sessions that we're conducting. Do we have like a clear, like, this is how long it takes to conduct a Speechcraft session, or is it something, how do you decide essentially how long to have each session be?
It really depends on the number of people and your goals. So it some depending on the number of sessions. So let's say that you were to follow the suggested 8-session format. You could do that within a club meeting, and then it would be the number of people you have in your Speechcraft. So if you have 5 participants in your Speechcraft, you want each of those Speechcrafters to speak in each session. The speeches are 3 to 5 minutes long. That's the recommended for Speechcrafter speeches. Then you could, kind of extrapolate the math out from there. You were unlikely to be able to do it in less than 45 minutes. You could push it out to an hour and a half. It's really whatever works for your club, how you want to coordinate that, how many people you want to have speaking each session, how many sessions you're doing. This program is really designed for clubs and coordinators to make it work for them. Here's the materials, here's what we suggest, here's some alternatives, and then you decide what works best for your club.
Fantastic. Thank you. Diana, this one's going to be a question for you. We're just asking for some clarification again on the pricing for this. So we know that one Speechcraft bundle is going to cost $50 US. If we need to purchase, like, if we have more than 5 Speechcrafters in our event, does that mean we're paying an additional set of $50 US each time, or how does that work?
Yeah, so essentially each bundle is $50 and each bundle gets you seats for 5 participants and a coordinator. So essentially for each 5 people that you're hosting or each 5 speech crafters, you'd have to purchase the $50 bundle.
Perfect. Thank you. Let's see. What else do we have here? Diana, I'm going to bring this question back to you as well. So we know that the maximum amount that we can charge a speech crafter is 12 months dues, and one of our attendees is wondering, how much does that actually come out to?
Oh, I have to do math in my head. So that's let's see, it's the international dues, so it's $90 total. Because it's basically the $45 for every 6 months, and it's the international dues. So $90 is the max.
Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot with doing math there. Let's see here. What else do we have? Jesse, one more time for you on the accessing of it. We've talked about going through the Speechcraft gateway in order to get materials, but we've also said you access your transcript via Basecamp and bookmark the Speechcraft gateway, and there's just a little bit of confusion there. Could you clarify how we go about accessing things and what these different things are that we're accessing?
Yes, we have 2 somewhat new terms that we're using in relationship to how you access Speechcraft. So the first is the Speechcraft Gateway. And as we've shared, that is where you set up your event. That is also where you and your participants will log in to access materials. So you may recall from the demonstration that there's a go button on that Speechcraft Gateway. That go button is how you get to the Speechcraft portal on Basecamp. And that's the other new term is the Speechcraft portal on Basecamp. So bookmarking the Speechcraft Gateway is important because it's going to always be your front door to how you get to your materials, which are housed on Basecamp. It's a separate portal on Basecamp from where your Pathways education lives. So that's why you'll want to have the Speechcraft Gateway bookmarked because that's the only way for you to get to that Speechcraft portal on Basecamp. But all of your materials and all of the materials that your participants access will be on the Speechcraft portal on Basecamp.
Perfect. Thank you so much. My goodness, we have gotten through so many questions, and I know there are so many more questions out there, and we wish we had time to get through all of them, but we are at the end of our time for today. Thank you all so much for joining us and spending this time with us. We had so much fun doing this with all of you. We hope you had fun hanging out with all of us. We will be sharing the recording of the webinar after we have completed our webinars for Speechcraft. We hope you get out there and get going with conducting your Speechcraft programs. Feel free to reach out to us with any additional questions that you have, and have a wonderful rest of your morning, day, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Thank you and goodbye.